introduce Jerry Barrish, our artistic director.
Welcome, everybody. This is a beautiful Sunday day, and I'm looking forward to this talk. One of my jobs as art director at the center is to find prestige museum people to do the jurying for our Left Coast annual show. And a good way to know if we have a prestige juror is how many applicants we have. A good juror will bring in about 800 applicants for our show. And in the case of Scott Shields, he wanted 1,034. We couldn't be happier. Scott is he's the Associate Director and Chief Curator at the Crocker Museum in Sacramento. He's been a friend of the Art Center for many years. I've known him through the Art Center, and he is very supportive of institutions like we have here. He's also has an MFA, he has an MA and a PhD from the University of Kansas, and he also has written many catalogs, including this one I have here called The Artist Continent Ends, the Monterey Peninsula Art Colony, 1875 to 1907. It's a beautiful catalog. He has also curated over 75 shows, and it's an honor that he came to our help, and it got us this wonderful show that you're going to see today. Anyway, here's Scott Shields.
Hello, everyone. As Jerry says, I'm Scott Shields, the Associate Director and Chief Curator at the Crocker Art Museum in Sacramento. Can you all hear me okay? Well, I guess you can't tell me, but I'm going to assume that those that can tell me will tell me if you can't. This was still to date my favorite juried show that I've ever done. And I say that because the work was of such high quality that usually when I jury a show, I pick too few things, and then I find myself having to go back and add things back to the list because I've cut too many. And with this show, there was just so many good pieces. It was just almost like bloodletting to have to keep cutting and cutting to get it down to only about 50 artists. When I jury a show, my approach is just to pick what I think is the very best work. And for me, that is twofold. I always say that, some artists have really good technique and some artists have really great ideas, but the really great artists have both. And I think that artists have to have both. And the two ladies that we're going to talk to today certainly have both. They asked me, did I pick them to show together because I thought their work looked good together? And I said, no, that wasn't it at all. I just thought both of their work was so incredibly strong. And it just happens that they do look pretty good together. They're on separate walls, and I think the show looks great. And I hope I get to see it in the flesh because I'm such a fan of both of them. It was a hard choice to figure out who to choose, and yet it was also an easy choice because both of their work is big and it's powerful and it's thought-provoking and it's complex and it's beautifully crafted. So I just couldn't be happier that both of them are able to be part of the show and that I had such a wonderful slate of choices to pick from. So I hope that all my future jurying experience will be as good as this one was, but I suspect that it will not be. This was a pretty special show. So I'm going to introduce both artists, and I'm going to apologize in advance that after I do that, I have to leave because the Crocker's having its own event today. We have a show opening there. So I won't be part of the question and answer, but if any of you want to wave your hand prior to me leaving, I'd take a question or two if you had one, but I will go ahead and introduce them. I'll start with Laura. Laura Corallo-Titus is a mid-career Bay Area artist whose work revolves around ideas associated with climate and changing perceptions of land and nature. She holds an MA from Sonoma State University and an MFA in painting from Claremont University. She's exhibited locally and nationally and is represented by Patricia Sweettoe Gallery in San Francisco. Her work has been acquired by public collections, including the Monterey Museum of Art, Brand Library and Art Galleries, Hewlett-Packard, Chapelette Winery, and I'm happy to say the Crocker Art Museum. And because when I'm jurying the show, it's blind, and because her work has changed, I didn't necessarily know that I was picking Laura and that we had her work in the collection until after I picked her. And then I went back and said, oh, we have a work by her. And I'm really happy we do. Dance Doyle was born and raised in Oakland, where the city's gritty beauty, graffiti, urban decay, fashion, and music continue to inform her pieces. She began her career as a ceramic artist, but went on to receive her BFA in textiles at San Francisco State University. She is a past vice president of the Tapestry Weavers West. Her work has been displayed at the California Palace of the Legion of Honor and de Young Museum in San Francisco, and at the San Jose Museum of Quilts and Textiles. She's been a resident of the Textile Arts Center in Brooklyn, the Bemis Center for Contemporary Arts in Omaha, and most recently, the Museum of Arts and Design in Manhattan. And I think other ones as well. So she's getting out there, and I know for a fact that she's about to enter an MFA program, and I think we'll have many choices as to which one to enter because her work is so strong, and I think lots and lots of people would be lucky to have her. So with that, I will turn it back to Jerry, and he can introduce the artists and just say thank you for this wonderful opportunity. I very much appreciate it, and I know the show is going to be fantastic, and I hope you all have a chance to see it in person.
I guess it's back to me now. I'd like to say a few words. First of all, I'd like to say a few words about curating the show. I should tell you that a lot of times when we have a juror and he sees one or two, or she sees one or two pieces of art by one artist, and he falls in love with those works, and then when he sees the whole body of work, not always the artist's work is that substantial. And in this case, it wasn't an issue. When I had to choose the work for the show, it wasn't a matter of trying to find something good. It was a matter of all the work was really terrific, and it was easy just to find the work that I thought would look the best in the gallery. I am a little stickly. I don't like crowded shows, and I believe that light is the best friend of an artist. I don't like having light on walls between works of art. I like the work to really pop out on us, and I like people to see the work in a non-crowded situation. And in this case, the work just sparkles. It's like a jewelry box, and I have a great staff who installed the work, and I'm very proud of us. We've been working together for many, many years, I think over 15 years now, and they know what we need to do there, and I think their work shows beautifully, and I hope they're proud of how the show looks. And now back to, I guess we'll first talk to, we're going to talk to Laura first, so I believe.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'm going to bring up your, see if I can screen share here. Here we go. We're going to bring up Laura's first piece. And Laura, when you're ready, just let me know when to change.
Okay. I want to thank everyone at Sanchez. I think you've really been wonderful with this whole thing, and definitely Scott Shields. And, you know, it's just such an honor to be chosen by him. So anyway, starting with this first piece, it is a drawing. It's a smaller piece that I usually work with. But around this time, I was spending quite a bit of time traveling, something we no longer get to do, but both traveling and in museums. We have a son that's studying art in Berlin. And so it's a great excuse to go to Europe often and see him. And it was one of those times where I really started cluing into how different landscape, how we perceive it at this point versus the old traditional styles of landscape painting, which would be very stationary or very much about mastery or about ownership, really. And, you know, at this point, it's rare that we see the landscape from a stationary viewpoint. We're almost always moving, whether we're in a car or we're on a plane or we're in a train. And it's usually so fragmented because we're so distracted by whether it's traffic or the ideas in our head or even just political discourse. It changes the way that you actually see the land, how you view it. So on this, this drawing is called 7 Hours, and it actually comes from a 7-hour train ride that we were taking that was between Hungary and Austria. And as everybody does at this point, I'm fooling around with my iPhone, playing around and getting these overlapping and different images that I started realizing I was more taken by the abstracted forms that I was getting by lights flashing in tunnels, or just the movement of things going by where you really couldn't put it all together. And I started really liking these breaks that happen. To me, they seemed to be a very good metaphor for loss of time or consciousness within these things. So if we could go to the next. Okay, this is a larger painting. It's called 2 Days. And very similar to the drawing before us, this one happened in a plane ride instead. And it's actually same thing, playing with my iPhone, looking out the window, going over between Iceland and Greenland. And that day I remember was very misty, very watery. There was very little differentiation between the sky and the sea and the land. It was all just very aqueous and wet. And it just, I like that dissolution of the horizon, where you were just enveloped in this kind of swirling sort of wet atmosphere that you could see. And so I used this break in here to really go between the 2 days. One is night, the other day, the bar that's at the bottom of it helps to ground the image, but also shows that kind of dislocation and loss of time in there. And when I was working on this painting, I usually work in oil, but I wanted something that was more similar to the atmosphere there. So I started with just pouring acrylics on canvas and letting it just flow and find what I could in that, and then starting to control it later. But I also remember on this plane ride that there was so much air turbulence. It was crazy. And I asked the stewardess about it, and she told me that since climate change has really started happening, that they're seeing a good deal more of air turbulence that's going on. And I like that whole disruption. I felt that the two played together with that. And that's another reason for the break in the painting. Okay, you can move on. This is a small piece. It's actually pencil on panel. It's called Narrative. And I really wanted to play with that loss between sky and ground. And, this loss between shadow and image, you're not really knowing quite where you're going in there. The change in values between the three parts suggests a change in time, or maybe in memory. The thing is so gray that it kind of suggests a foggy memory in that, but it's actually taken from a drive out through the Delta area in California, where the land tends to be very undistinguished, and it's usually quite foggy and misty going out there, so that what actually draws your attention more often is the flash of a light, a traffic light, or maybe the flash of a light on your phone, something, or in your rearview mirror, something different than that. So that tends to be what stands out as maybe more of this digital interaction rather than what's kind of in front of you. You have to be looking carefully to make sure that you stay on the road in there. Okay, you can go on. And as we're coming up to this piece is called Acid Rain. And this is done in 2019. And, at that point we were becoming so aware of these huge storms caused by climate change, as well as this political unrest going on all over. And I felt really overwhelmed by storms coming in all around. And So I wanted to do this piece that where you felt that you were in the storm. I didn't want to be just looking from the outside in there. And I don't tend to work from sketches or ideas. I tend to start more with trying to create an environment, a feeling of where, you know, what that feels like to be in there. And so I was working with this gray, black and white imagery of both this storm, that's foliage that's blowing in the wind, but at the same time setting it up so that it's also moving in this spiraling pattern that's very similar to overhead images that you'll see of a hurricane or big storms at sea like that. And then it's overlaid with these very astringent greens and some violets that both work into the imagery itself, but at the same time appear very separate and somehow, I don't know, a little bit like you can't, why are they there? Are they in the same plane? Are they digital? Are they kind of this misinformation that's going through this image? So I wanted to contrast that with this background that is actually quite painterly. And I really wanted to be working in a much more painterly way, where you let the paint speak for itself, the language of the paint come through. I think with being so overwhelmed with digital images during the pandemic and looking at screens so often, I wanted to have a real, you know, gritty feel to the paint, that it has this viscous feel to it. So yeah, I think you can go on. And this one is another piece that is directly involved in climate change, but it's called Dry Water, and it's really alludes to the just endemic problems California has, both with water rights and with drought. When this piece was done, Napa had a huge fire in 2017, and then we had two more fires in 2019. So all around us, you're seeing the power of nature, the power of this destruction, the danger of the dryness in there. But I didn't want it to be this devastating, you know, sad thing. There's this power too at the same time that's coming through. One of the things that we were seeing quite a bit of is both my husband and I are huge hikers, and we were seeing trees that you would have thought had not a chance after the 2017 fire come back of sprouting these leaves. And it was amazing. So you realize there is this power that's going on, this regenerative power that you can tap into, that it's our hope for really what's going on. And I wanted this stormy ball of foliage that to be fiery and to be strong against this background. You can see there's a pull of the storm going one way. The background feels like it's going the other. It's more, there's a real tension set up between the two of them. Okay, you can go on. This is another one talking about really California, obviously with the fires. It's called Scorched. And it's, again, one that I wanted to have where you feel like you're part of it. You're inside it. There's no, you're not looking at a real landscape. You're right in the middle of something. It feels like it is still burning and kind of taking itself down, melting. The images are coming apart in there. But at the same time, where you have the blankness behind it, the darkness behind it, that there's a new slate, there is a new start to some of this. And it's, it's got this dark in a way that it's burning this hot beauty, but that also refers back to a metamorphosis that can take place. And, Phoenix rising from the flames in there. Okay, go ahead. And this piece right here, which I have listed as untitled, and it's actually, I've called it Melissa. It's one of the works that's more current, really, with what I've been doing right now. And I call these my disrupted landscapes. There's a sense to them that things don't really quite match up, perspective lines and all are there, but they don't really quite work. You can see there's this fragments of foliage coming towards the front that are fairly non-defined in there. But what I really wanted to have in this was a certain hum, a buzzing that was going through there, where there's a flicker to the imagery, where there's some of the stuff in the front is very clear, but there's a flicker in the background. You feel as if there is some other life force moving through there. And this area towards the top left of the painting is foliage, but it comes across as a hive. And Melissa was the demigod, I guess, or goddess of the bees. And I always thought, one of the stories I heard about her that I thought was really interesting is that she won a contest with her honey for which she was supposed to be granted a wish, and she wanted power, but because the gods are very fickle, they didn't really give her power. They turned her into a bee, but the only way she could use her power was to die if she stung something. So there was just this metaphor of, this balance in nature where you can have great power, but it comes with great responsibility as well. And how we all put these things all back together on this. And this is also, in a lot of the work that I'm doing now, I'm working somewhat from Greek mythology, but is really as a stand-in for nature and, kind of drawing strength from a lot of the old stories of the gods and goddesses in there and their fickleness, their incredible fickleness, which works well for me. So that's, I think that's it.
Wow. Well, thank you so much. That's powerful. We'll hold questions until the end after Dance's time to speak now.
Hello, everybody. Again, my name is Dance Doyle, and I first fell in love with tapestry when I was a textiles major. We had like a week or 2 week, 101 on it, and I just kind of stuck with it and then changed my major. It was just it was a way that I could get my ideas and visions across. It was a way I could journal my thoughts, process my emotions, focus on something. It taught me how to really focus. So the piece you're seeing right now, O-Dip. O-Dip is like a saying that, I kind of grew up with on the dance floors in Oakland, where you do some kind of dance move and people go, oh, dip. It's the wording is weft-faced ecot, and also I dyed all the wool in it myself. I made this actually at Penland School of Crafts in North Carolina. So I kind of just, so I dyed everything. And it was just kind of like to capture, I wanted to do like a saying that kind of represented where I was from. And so I did it kind of like representing. And so, that was all weft-faced ecot. And I did that under the instruction of Mary Zicafus, who's a master at that. Next slide. This one's called Martyr from the Lower Bottoms. It's referring to the lower bottoms of West Oakland. In the 80s and the 90s, you didn't want to be down there unless you lived there. It's a friend of mine's mother, and she basically sacrificed whatever dreams she had to raise the boys that she was raising, because the dad wasn't around. So I kind of made this more of like at the very bottom, I have two like birds fighting over the fruit on the tree. Sorry, there's no close detail of that. And then obviously I wrapped the ends at the very bottom, and I have them braided as well. And then there's this two-headed bird, and one of them is the ghost of the father, and the other one is the son looking up at the father, who's the ghost. And there's music coming out of the ghost's mouth. And yeah, I don't know, it was a conceptual piece. I really, it's almost, I was studying like manifest destiny and also like, old fables. And so, I've always, I believe in the urban mystic, and like, so I tried to incorporate that into a Martyr from the Lower Bottoms. So I've idolized here in urban martyrdom. So next slide. Okay, so this is more recent. This one I finished in 2018. This one's called 6 Feet High. It's an autobiographical one. There is a memory of mine, and where I was drinking at a graveyard. There were other people around, and then so it wasn't just me, but I was like it was like a hot summer's night, and I wasn't supposed to be in this, and we all weren't supposed to be in the cemetery. Anyway, I was drinking. Anyway, and it was really close to the time where I finally got sober, which was going on 12 years. So I was belligerent and I was ducking from the cops, and so I wanted to create a piece where she is like, larger than life, all wasted away. Beauty was not something I was trying to capture here. It wasn't like I didn't want to give her the perfect curves or whatnot. I just wanted to like kind of present her like wasted away. And she's standing 6 feet over a little chamber in the ground where her coffin is. So it was basically like this piece is about a decision that I made. It's about the choice to live rather than the choice to die. So that's what this one's about. It has kind of graffiti elements. They always show up in my work with the arrows, and there's always the long palm trees on the sides. And I put those there. You'll see that in my work because a lot of streets in Oakland have those long palm trees that are just lined down the street. It's like it was part of the city planning at one point. Anyway, they're really long and big, and they're still there, and they've been there forever. So the wording on the side reads, my feathers fell off, but my feathers fell off some blocks ago, but fuck it, the sky's the limit. Meaning like you're young, you have these bright, bright feathers, and then something happens and, you don't treat yourself well for a long time. Your feathers, all those feathers fall off. And you still just like, you want to continue to do something despite adverse consequences. So anyway, that was kind of what that was about. But I obviously think I picked up and found and resewed on all those bright feathers. So I still wear them, I think. Next slide. Okay, this one is called The Witness. This one is about me revisiting a kind of traumatic event. So I was a sole witness to a murder in Oakland, downtown Oakland, 14th and Harrison to be exact. And I lived on a second story of this building, and I had a big window that you could open and look down and whatnot. I had it open because it was a summer's night, and I heard a stampede of people run by the building, and I was like, what's going on? And they were like, we can sound like people aren't having fun. They're making those other kinds of sounds like, oh my God, like run for your life. And so I look out and I see them run by, and like 3 seconds later, this guy who's holding up his pants and no shirt, and he just starts shooting. So anyway, that was, that was crazy. And so it happened in 2008. I wove this in 2016. So when I decided to like kind of revisit, and this is all ways of journaling for me. I do these visual journals. I need to make this work. Sometimes I feel like it's the only way I can like sparkle, or the only way I can like breathe, or the only way I can process, these human experiences. So, I kind of, when I put stars in my work, it's just a reminder of like what I see as, something that is much bigger than I am, a reminder, to right size you, and the city, like there's so many lights, you can't see the stars. And I think stars are an amazing spiritual reminder for people. They're like, this is like, we're part of a universe. Like this is all, just puts things into perspective. So I have, it on the bottom, the satellite, and then at the top too. Anyway, that's I did the staircase going down. Anyway, so that's what this piece kind of was about. But it's just, I've always just liked staring at it. It's very peaceful in my opinion. You know, she looks like I'm like in this picture. I'm in a dreamlike state, looking down on the scene in a very safe way to revisit it. You know, if you're in a dream, you don't have to revisit it in reality. So maybe I'm just continuing the dream with like weaving, just kind of getting it like a printer, really. Anyway, next slide. Okay, this is my second to most recent work. I did this during my 9-month curriculum-based artist residency at the Textile Art Center on Carroll Street in Brooklyn. And you know, this was during the series where I was doing, I did a lot of research on the US's ways of policing people who are either addicts, mental health illnesses, and then also people who have been homeless. And it's just brutal. It's really brutal. And so, I mean, I was doing these pieces on kind of highlighting the kind of the misery of where you're at when you're in that space. So here's this young woman, and she's shooting heroin. If you that's what she's doing with her hands. She's putting a syringe in her arm. And she's shooting heroin in the city, down in the city at 3 a.m. And in her high, in the mania of her high, this explosion of misery and euphoria at the same time, she's got this kind of pained look on her face. But I always, and around her head is metal twine, which was very hard to work with, but which I totally made work. It was very temperamental, it would break if you just even gave it a little tension. So it was like this vintage metal kind of thread that I got. Anyway, so, and I also have the long palm trees. The lips are to kind of represent the release. Anyway, she's in her high, floating above the city, and she's bringing her issue to the steps of City Hall. There's obviously there's, you know, so much like a state can do and a city can do to provide housing, you know, to stabilize people, you know, people, and it's so many things that, you know, but what's surrounding it and what's making people not like take action because it's inhumane, by just arresting them and putting them in mental institutions, because it's a revolving door. So anyway, it's, you know, obviously that's why I have her floating towards the steps of City Hall. There's a lot of politics around, you know, whether we should, it's all about stigma, basically. So anyway, that's the cause of the inaction, I believe. Anyway, so I really loved this piece. And, you know, even though it's about a tough topic, all of the chartreuse and teal colors, that the zigzags, and that's all just free form. I did not have, I didn't have a design in mind. I just let my fingers do the work, and it depended on my mood. So if you look right above the lips, it's kind of like an animal print, but then it like looks like a fingerprint and then goes into these zigzags. It's like there was no, I just did what I wanted to do at that moment. It was in the moment, which I really, 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 really love, and I'm going to continue to do. I have the same thing going on at the top. See, like none of them actually look like each other. Some of them look like just ripples. It's just kind of, it's funny how I guess I project myself in through tapestry from day to day. It's nuts. So anyway, that's what this one is about. It's 101 inches by 37 inches. And yeah, it's shaped. And next slide. Okay, this one is called Granada, and I did this one in 2017. It's 87 inches by 35 inches. Here's this woman, and she's marching through the streets of downtown Oakland, because you see the Tribune building off to the left. and there's City Hall right there at her feet. And it's raining. If you're up close to the tapestry, you can see the raindrops falling in front of in front of her legs and down into the drain. And then goes through a pipe and then goes back, like drains into like abstractness. So I always weave from bottom to the top. So when I do, I feel like geometry is sacred. And it also helps me meditate and kind of like gather my thoughts. So when I started doing this, that's all freeform too. I didn't have any design in mind. I just, was working out, and then all of a sudden it's like the break off from that. It's like goes from like weird kind of checker mirroring, at the bottom, and then it goes into these floral designs. And then I wanted to, and there's also warp that was cut out obviously after I took it off tension off the loom, so that you can see through the wall on that one. Anyway, and so she's marching. She just pulled the pin to a grenade, and it's just exploding in her hand, like the split second. It's just about mental health, and it's really, I think it was my reaction to the political climate. Yeah, it was, it's just, there's some way I have to have a voice, and if it's through tapestry, then so be it. So anyway, I really loved this piece. I still do. Yeah, it's one of my favorite. Oh, and the top you can't see, but at the very tippy top, there's like I shredded a halter top I used to wear in my 20s, and it's all sequenced. So I shredded it with a rotary cutter, and so I put these like strips of sequencing in from that thing, and so it's kind of mermaid color. But anyway, the whole border at the top is made out of that. So anyway, this one was great to make. I love it. Next slide. Okay, is this the last one?
Yes.
Okay, so I made this at my residency this fall at the Bemis Center for Contemporary Arts. This is also a response to 2020. I guess I think you can look at it and you're like, I just kind of putting my hands to my face. I wanted her obviously again marching through the streets, and she's like tuning into the world around her, and sometimes it's overwhelming. It gets really overwhelming. And so also I've been having problems with my back, so I gave her this kind of fishbone back, and so that was on my mind, so it kind of came out. And the rest of it is free form. I mean, when I got to where her elbows are, I was like, oh, I think I'm making a circle. So anyway, none of it was designed in the explosion parts. I think I need to, when I do obviously I'm waiting, it's shaped, and it's the most shaped one I've done so far. So yeah, it was a joy to do, a lot to clean up after you take it off the loom. But it was this one was just like, this one's an emotional piece for sure. And yeah, this one, I don't know, this one has a special place in my heart. Anyway, obviously the long palm trees, I incorporated the sky at the top. I kind of like to do that, to revisit, something that, it's like, if you want to have a pattern, you got to continue the pattern. But like, I like, I just liked that little part of sky at the top. And anyway, the end of the palm tree had to end up somewhere. So anyway, that's what this piece is about. Yeah, I finished this. It was a 2-month residency. So anyway, and this one was on, they purchased a loom because I was coming. So now Bemis has a loom with a commuter chair. Heads up. Yeah. So, I mean, I know that, I'm moving away from rectangles completely. I just, I'm almost there. But, all my work is just a way of processing everything. So I hope you enjoyed the work. Thank you for attending, and thank you for listening to me.
So, thank you so much. So much power in both of your works, with both natural elements and the stories about climate change, and then dance, the emotion that you put into these with such little sparkles of fun and pom-poms and things that break it up just like you are. So I'd like to ask if anybody has any questions. You can either raise your hands or unmute yourself, either way here, if you'd like to ask a question of either of the artists. I see Sheila is unmuted. Sheila Gamble.
Yep. I dance. I have a studio at the Art Center too, but I'm a fiber artist, and I've done a lot of weaving, and I just loved your show. I mean, I just finished a tapestry that's just rectangle, and I just was blown away by all the shapes that you had in yours, because I know how hard it is in terms of warps and where to put things. And the one question I had was, what kind of loom were you working on?
Okay, so I was working on a 4-harness counterbalance loom to make Marta from the Lower Bottoms, The Witness, and Granada. And then I worked on a Leclerc to make 6 Feet High. That was at the Richmond Art Center. And then I had to go buy a loom up in Montauk when I moved to Brooklyn. And so that one was a Harrisville 8-harness floor loom. And that was, I loved that loom. That was a great loom. I mean, I really loved the 4-harness counterbalance handmade loom. Like, it was great. I got it at an antique store with all the, warping board, everything thrown in there. It was a good deal. I got it for $50. So, I was working in the antique business. So, and then now I'm on a 60-inch Leclerc here, and I have a 8-harness Gilmore across the room. So I'm like, I feel like Santa's little elf or something. Like, this is the workshop. So it's many different looms, many different. What do you work on?
I have a few floor looms. My favorite one that's apart now, that was from Sweden, and it's counterbalance, and it's all there's no nails putting it together. It's all wood. And I have a Leclerc, but a lot of the tapestries I do on a vertical loom, like just a giant vertical loom. I don't know, somehow it's easier for me to see it visually as it's growing up. And so I work on that too. That's the one I just finished anyway.
Nice.
Thank you. I loved seeing your work though.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
I see, does Michelle have a question? I see you unmuted. Maybe not. So additional questions here for either artist. We've got Laura as well as Dance here.
Hit something.
Jerry, did you have a question?
No, I don't think I think it's inappropriate for me to override our juror.
Okay. Laura, I'll ask a question. Laura, did you previously do less abstract landscapes, or how did you move into that, space and thinking so much of climate change? Is it just the times?
Yes, it was really the times. I've always had elements of nature in my work, but I can't say I was particularly interested in landscape painting. So it was more of a reaction towards seeing the differences in it. And I've definitely developed more of an interest in it as I've gone on with it. But I say my work was definitely more abstract, more conceptual earlier. And then it's still very abstract, but just dealing with landscape and, playing with foreground, a midground, a background, a horizon line, things like that. But it's more the elements of nature that I kind of really see as such metaphors for everything that's going on around us, both emotionally and then also because it's in such, it's endangered so much right now.
It's very moving, and in an interesting way, we have a sea level rise and climate change exhibition in our East Gallery now too. So together they make a very powerful statement. Do we have a question from Alex?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
A question for Dance. With your putting yourself in your work, do you see that as being some particular aspect of yourself, or something that people see or don't see, or that, or is a private view to you? Or
are you asking if like
are you, in what sense this is a self-portrait on an emotional level, I guess you might say?
Oh, yeah, I mean, there are better self-portraits I could have done of myself. There's lilies in the background, and some ornamental floral shapes. I just wanted to tell the truth, and I needed to address it. It's all, I mean, look, it's like I'm living my best life today. It's great. It's been so different, for a long time. But it's still good to like remind myself of like what happened. And so I kind of do that to kind of, and this is a series I'm doing. So this is not like, I'm not going to be doing this, and doing people in addiction, for my whole career. I'm just at the beginning. So, it was part of the series, and I could do that work as part of the series, but I'm sure like I'm going to show up somewhere else, but it'll be under different circumstances. But yeah, it was emotional. It was hard to finish that one. I don't know. Sometimes I don't want to finish a tapestry because I don't want to start a new one because I'm so attached to it.
Oh.
So.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I see that Barbara has a question.
Well, it's not really a question. I just wanted to say that Dance is someone I've known for many decades, I think, a really long time. And I followed her work with joy through these years. And I love seeing the progression to consummate artist and mastery of technique, which is something that we started working on a long time ago. And with that, her brutal honesty and her sense of style and her sense of who she is and what she wants to say has not changed. And so I think this is a great progression. I'm just really proud of her.
Thank you so much, Barbara. Yeah, I've known Barbara forever, ever since San Francisco State. So I was always impressed with her work, man. Mind-blowing.
Wonderful. Do we have other? I'm looking for either folks unmuting their microphones or hands raised here on the screen. I'm gonna let's see, Gabby.
Well, I'm here because of Dance, but I had not known much about Laura's work before, and I am truly impressed with her vision, or progression of vision, that she has exhibited in her painting. I love the abstractness of it and the ideas that come from it. To me, it's quite good. And I just wanted to say that I'm so glad she and Dancer, I call her Francie, were in the same show. So,
Thank you. Thank you very much.
thank you, Laura.
As I'm scanning for other questions, Laura, I was intrigued by your use of pencil in addition to the painting.
Yeah, you mean like on that small piece narrative?
Yes.
Yeah, that was different. I just started playing around with pencil and colored pencil on panel, and it doesn't react in any way that's like it does on paper, because it builds up a surface at a point where it will no longer absorb it. And so it, it had its own challenges, but it also, was just a very kind of satisfying for those misty kind of looking places. And it's one of those things that I plan to go back and try and do some more of those things.
Okay, yeah. I really had to spend some time looking at it up close to see the pencil. It was quite intriguing.
Yeah, it's a lot of pencil on there.
Yes. Okay. Any other questions here this afternoon? And by the way, as you're thinking of something, the show is open and through Sunday, March 21st. If you haven't seen it yet, please make an appointment. There's free appointments that you can book online Friday, Saturday, and Sundays from 1 to 5. And you can just go to our website and click the link and select a time that works for you. And it's very powerful. I mean, we were showing the works here online, but they're so powerful to be standing in the middle of the main gallery to see these works and the scale of them for both artists. So it's really easy to go in and book an appointment either on a link on our Sanchez Art Center website or direct with the booking portal, which is all one line strung together, Sanchez Art Center 10, the numeral 10, 2to8.com. So we hope you can come in and see the work while it's here, and it is for an extended period of time to give everyone the opportunity. So through Sunday, March 8th. Barbara? Oh, you were just waving.
Oh, you're muted, Barbara.
Actually, I was just waving goodbye because I have to leave right now. So
Okay.
thank you all. This was really wonderful.
Okay. If we don't have any other questions, so I'd like to leave open if we do, but otherwise we can close off here. We've been together for a really interesting and enjoyable hour together. So last call for questions. Anyone can unmute themselves.
Cindy, if you've recorded it, how could other people see it?
We will be posting a recording to our Sanchez Art Center YouTube channel, and we'll also send it out via email in our next email that will also have the links to booking appointments so that everybody can have an opportunity.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, everyone. And thank you to both Laura and Dance for spending the afternoon with us and bringing your wonderful work here.
It was
Oh,
our
thank you.
pleasure.
Yeah.
Bye, Laura.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye,
Thank you,
Dance.
Jerry.
Bye.
Thank you, Dance. Thank you, Laura. And thanks to Scott. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.